In order to make Jack's outfit, you do not have to be a seamstress. In fact, I'm not going to sew a thing on him. I'm actually going to just hot glue the pieces together. You can certainly hand sew it if you like, or do it on a sewing machine, but we spent so much time on him already. I just really want to get him out there and start on the next projects as well. And it'll still look just as good. It doesn't have to be a perfectly tailored jacket. It's Jack, it's Halloween. So I went out and bought just plain black fabric. This is polyester. It's the cheapest thing. I stayed away from cotton because it fades faster, and then it also shows a lot of wrinkles. You can get a striped fabric, but I opted for the black because if you get a striped fabric, then you're stuck with making everything that way. There's no way, if you have a scrap of fabric, you can't turn it. It'll just look silly. So I also went and picked up at the fabric store fabric paint, just cheap old school white fabric paint. So once I cut all the pieces, before I put them on him, I will go ahead and just paint all of the stripes, let it dry, then put it together. I'm just going to make 2 straight legs of pants, basically. Since his pants are super high-waisted, I'm actually just going to make a separate piece and just kind of glue it onto the legs in the front all the way to the top. Once we put the stripes on, it'll all look pretty uniform. So first thing I did was measure from his hips all the way down to his feet, so I know how long to make it, and then now I need to know how wide to make it. The widest point are going to be your joints. Then you want to give yourself at least an inch and a half to give yourself a seam, enough to glue, to fold over, and enough room to work with in case you make a mistake. I'm just going to cut it out, put it on there, make sure it fits all right, and then if it does, I'll just copy the same exact piece for the second leg. Now I'm going to do the same thing with his arms. I'm going to measure the length of his arms, and it's going to be the same width around as the legs. At first, I was just going to lay the fabric on him, draw him with some chalk, and then cut it out. I don't have too much fabric left, so I'm going to mock it up with paper first, make a pattern. I happen to have some freezer paper in the house. It's really thick butcher paper, basically, that I can draw on and cut and put holes in it, and it stays pretty sturdy. If you don't have this paper, no biggie. You can use probably parchment paper, wrapping paper. You can even just tape together some computer paper. Should work just fine. So now I'm going to get a pair of scissors, and I'm going to just cut some of this extra slack off the side, just so I can see a little better where I'm going. Now remember, this is the back of Jack. We're going to start with his back first. Remember that he has really long, spindly coattails too, so keep that in mind. We're going to do the jacket in 2 separate pieces. The back piece and then 2 separate front pieces, and then we'll just glue them all together once they're on him and the stripes are already been painted. So at this point, it's really important to remember that this is just a general mock-up. We're going to cut the fabric, we're going to cut it a little bigger than we need. The part where we really make it into shape is when we get the glue and we actually have it on him, and then you can make it smaller, you can make some little adjustments and tweak them out. This is just the basic shape. I'm going to go and I'm going to tape all of the seams up really, really well to make it as one whole piece. Then I'm going to take scissors and just cut it in half totally, so I have those 2 half pieces. Once I have that in half, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut the V in his chest. It's just going to be a V, then we're going to cover it with lapels after, so don't worry about it fraying, anything like that. Then we also have to make, like I said, he has really high-waisted pants, so I'm actually just going to take a square of fabric and just make it long enough that I can kind of tuck it under his crotch a little bit to hide all of this. Alright, here's our front piece. So now we just need to cut the angles, the 2 triangles in there. So I made a middle mark down here to where his spine was, so I'm going to roughly fold it in the middle, as close as I can to the middle. So now I also had made a mark to how far I want to cut down. Next step is cutting out the front and the back. All you need to do is lay your pieces out onto your fabric, trace around them, give yourself an extra ½ inch to 1 inch around the edges, just some room to work with, and then cut them out, and then we'll put them together. Now I'm going to paint the pieces that I've already cut. As far as the lapels and the top part of his pants, I'm going to wait until after I put everything together and then cut them out from there. It'll be a little easier. Now Jack doesn't have perfect straight pinstripes. They almost look like a stripes you would have if you're making a fake tree. I cut Jack's vest in half just to make it a little easier to move around. Now I'm just going to start taping and pinning pieces roughly where I think they should go. Then once I'm pretty happy with that, I'm going to grab my glue gun and just start gluing the pieces together. Like I said, you don't have to be a seamstress. There's no science to it. Just do what you think looks good. You just start kind of tucking pieces and just start gluing them on. I'm going to do the jacket first, then the arms, then the legs, and then we'll do the bottom piece here and cut the coat tails very last. Onto the lapels. I'm going to use the same paper pattern idea. I just taped a piece on here. I'm just going to trace, because I can see through it, trace where the line of his vest is. Then his lapels kind of come down. There's a triangle wedge, and then they meet at the bottom. I'm going to cut 2 of these out, just reverse it on the other side. Now when you go to paint these stripes on, they go down at an angle like this, all the way down. For the lapels, since they're front and center and they're a focal point, I decided to take the edges and glue them, fold them over and make a nice seam. So it gives it a nice edge so it's not fraying. If you do decide to do this part, when you cut it out, make sure you give yourself a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I didn't, which caused some nice blisters on my fingers when I had to hot glue them. Jack has really, really small feet, so I actually got these cardboard inserts out of a new pair of tennis shoes that I just covered in black duct tape. I'm going to take this, it's the wrong foot, but I'm going to take the foot and just tape it directly onto the bottom of the PVC and then hem his pants accordingly. If you're not able to get these, then just make it out of a regular piece of cardboard. Just kind of bend up the cardboard a little bit and tape it a whole bunch with duct tape. I don't know if you could paint silver duct tape, but you could buy black duct tape. It's really cheap. I went ahead and cut the coattails. I didn't draw them out, I just grabbed a pair of scissors and started cutting. I'm a little afraid that the edges are going to start to fray with all the wind outside, so I'm going to use the same method as I did for the lapels. I'm just going to put a little bead of hot glue along the edge and just fold maybe a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch over. There are 2 other options you can do. Instead of the hot glue, you can just use clear nail polish. You don't have to fold it over, just put some clear nail polish along the edge. There's also an item that they sell in fabric stores called Fray Check. It comes in this little bottle, maybe 2-3 ounces. It's a clear adhesive, basically, that you just put along the edges to keep it from fraying. Jack's bat bow tie is one of the most important part of the costumes. It's probably also one of the most simple things to make too. I used these foam craft sheets. If you can get them at any craft store or even some fabric stores carry them. If you're not able to get this, just use some black poster board. I cut out 3 shapes. I cut out wings, which are identical, and then a bat head, which also kind of looks like a cat head. Now I'm just going to use my same fabric paint that I used for his clothes, for the stripes, and just make some, they almost look like veins, just 3 veins on each wing, and then paint in the eyes on the head. Once I'm finished with that, I'm going to go ahead and just glue the wings onto the back of the head. So I'm just going to hot glue the bat tie right to the PVC to cover up all of the joints. If you watch the video that we did on making Jack's body, you'll see that we talked about doing different attachments to put his head actually into his body. Since his body is a much larger gauge PVC than his neck, we had to get some step-down adjustments. So we have 2 separate pieces, one that's 3/4 inch for the neck, and then this one fits inside the 1 and I believe it's 1/4 inch we'll use for his body. We actually glued these pieces into his head to make it a little more stout, so this will just slide into his body. We also have 2 more of these pieces that we're going to glue on his Christmas head as well too, so we can interchange them, and it's pretty easy just to put them in and out. Fergie and Squirt both want to say thanks for watching. If you want to learn how to make the rest of Jack, some more Nightmare Before Christmas props, as well as other Halloween shenanigans, make sure you subscribe. Any comments or questions, make sure you leave them below. Thanks a bunch.